know about you is that you have ambition to be great. My job is to coach you to get all that greatness out of you.
What's good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for yet another one as draft season continues. We had the center big board yesterday. We're going to have the tackle big board this week, but tonight we're going to be joined by a very special guest, a man I consider a friend in this community. He's honestly one of the best at what he does when it comes to scouting and evaluating players. Ryan Roberts, he's going to be on in just a few minutes here. Y'all are going to really like this one. If y'all, and I know y'all did, we almost got 10,000 views on the video with Dante Colonelli. If y'all like that one, you're going to really love this one. So stay tight. We're going to get to that in 1 second. I just want to shout out everyone for coming out on your Monday evening. I see the Two Alive crew is in the chat. Appreciate all of you. Already got 110 people in the room. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. We are only a couple hundred away from 8K. Let's get to 10K before the season starts, baby. You guys have been really good. We are up over almost 2,700 subscribers over the last 3 months. So let's keep that rolling, guys. Let's keep it going. Appreciate all of you. And yeah, I see Mike liking that. Get all the greatness out of you. Mike McDaniel, baby. That's what it is. It's McCoachin, baby. We love it over here on Phinside the NFL. Guys, so draft season is coming upon us. We're going to get into some mock drafts. We got our final big board coming out this week. A whole bunch of stuff. Appreciate you, Raphael. He says much love from Cali Reason. Appreciate you, my guy. I see the Two Alive crews showing up. Lunchtime here in New Zealand. Shout out to New Zealand. Man, you already know what time it is. I'm waiting for that Haka dance to start off every game this year with Jalen Phillips, Tua Tagovailoa, and our whole team. So we're going to get into a lot of all that. Like I said, just in a minute here, I see Showtime showing up with his usual eyes. EM Dolphin fan showing up. EM, hit me up. I actually had an idea. I tried calling you about it earlier, so hit me up about that, man. I see already people talking about running backs in the I got you all gassed up that we're taking a running back, huh? All right, let's get to this. Let's bring them on. Give me 1 sec here. Without further ado, Ryan, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's been a long time. I appreciate you having me back on, though, man.
It actually has been a minute. You were on quite a bit last. We had our own show last year, and then you were on during some of the draft nights. Your father, some people might not remember, but huge Dolphin fan. Mm-hmm. So it runs in your blood as much as you try to deny and put in Notre Dame Irish blood in there. It's all good. We got Eichenberg, bro. Come on.
Yeah, he's got the Irish blood in him too, though, man. Don't let him fool you there.
You know what's funny, man? The high school I went to before I went to college was actually Notre Dame.
Oh, really?
It was a Catholic school out here, and they jacked the Fighting Irish logo and everything like that. We had the blue with the gold trim, and then we had the Fighting Irish guy like on our logo on our shoulders and stuff. It was ridiculous. But
so it runs through you as well. What you're saying?
Bro, I still got my number 16 and my number 13 jerseys upstairs, bro. It runs through me, dude. I try to put them on, bro, when I'm cleaning the house, but it's a tight fit nowadays, man. Dude. Draft season is upon us. This is your bread and butter. But before we get into everything, can you actually explain to my viewers, you've taken on a lot of new roles, including one with covering the Irish. But man, you now cover the CSG All-Star game. You do a whole bunch of stuff now. So can you just give everyone who's listening and might be hearing you for the first time just a background of what you do, your credentials, your site, and everything you work for?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, obviously, so my roots are in the NFL draft realm, which is why I'm on here. So I was on with NFL Draft Bible for a couple years as the director of recruiting of scouting, and I had left their organization, and I decided to, after a couple months of just kind of putting content in different spots, I'm like I felt a little disjointed, so I was like, I'm just going to start my own site. So kept it as basic as possible. RiseNDraft.com, where we have mock drafts and scouting reports and draft database and mock draft simulator. And pretty much it's kind of, I wanted to try to make it a one-stop shop for all draft nerds out there like me type of thing. So do that. And then I was teaching middle school special education for a little bit. And I got the opportunity in January to finally go football full time at Sports Illustrated. So now I'm on Irish Breakdown, which covers Notre Dame football, obviously, and I am the director of recruiting over there. So not only am I a degenerate NFL draft guy, I'm also cover recruiting. So it's a crazy world, man. So doing that, and then on the NFL draft side, I guess I should have started that before the recruiting thing. I'm also one of the scouts at the College Gridiron Showcase, which plays down in Fort Worth, Texas every year. Last year, they had 12 players drafted out of the game, another 70 that signed, undrafted free agents. So it's a really nice showing. They've had a lot of good players. I mean, like Jacob Harris was there from Central Florida that went in the 4th round a couple years ago. They had the running back out of Minnesota who went in the 4th round last year, Kenny and Wagwe, who was the backup running back to Breece Hall, was there as well. So they've kind of been growing substantially, and it's just been a lot of fun, obviously, kind of. It allowed me to go a lot deeper into the draft this year, to be honest. Like usually I'm like 350-ish deep, at some points with most of the scouting reports. But like this year, it's like I'm looking at players from, Culver, Stockton, and like really small schools. So it's been a lot of fun, man. It's a crazy world. A lot of things are moving quick, but I've enjoyed it, to say the least.
Bro, how do you get all 22 for Trover Stockton? That's my next question, bro.
Oh, man. I mean, I'll tell you.
You got to go there and film it yourself, bro. That's
No, it's funny. I actually we had a player that we invited to Culver Stockton who actually didn't come to our game. He ended up going to the NFLPA Bowl, who's actually in the draft this year, Andrew Rupsich, who's actually a pretty decent player, by the way. He might get drafted. But I actually emailed the coach. I'm like, just try and do some scouting. And he actually added me to his Huddle account. So it said Coach Roberts on there, man. So,
That's awesome, bro.
Yeah.
All right. So the first question I do got to ask you, because we go through, and it's not even a Dolphins related question. It's just, this guy's the best player in the draft. And now the nonsense is starting. This whole Kyle Hamilton isn't fast. And this whole narrative about, especially you're an Irish fan too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just how garbage is this narrative right now? I mean, especially when you put the film doesn't lie. You watch the film, okay? I'm not seeing what is combine testing or whatever is popping up. What are your overall thoughts on, and let's throw Kayvon Thibodeau in this situation too. And I also got to say this. I actually use your mock draft simulator the most because a lot of the guys who are on your site, like Dante and other guys, I follow them and I trust them on Twitter. So I trust your rankings. That's why I actually go and use your draft simulator. But anyways, this Kayvon Thibodeau, Kyle Hamilton thing, is this just a matter of teams are trying to drive down their stock so they can drop to them? Like, what's this ridiculous? And I'm going to have another follow-up question for you. But what's this ridiculousness going on right now?
Well, I mean, I'll start with Thibodeau, I guess, right? So, I mean, from a physical perspective, he's 6'4", 250 plus pounds, 34-inch arms, was very productive when he played, 4.58, I think, in the 40 at the combine. So he's an incredible athlete, man. He was a 5-star recruit. So some publications had him as the number 1 player coming out of high school out of California. So very talented player. There's no doubt. He is a player that I think is getting the victim of kind of analysis by paralysis, man. Like they're just some over analyzation at this point. He's a guy that's just been ever since he was a freshman and he had like 9.5 or 10 sacks or whatever it was in the Pac-12. People knew Kayvon Thibodeau was going to be a dude in a couple years. Like you just knew it. So every year I feel like you get a player like that that's been on the forefront, like the Trevor Lawrence last year. Like people overanalyzed Trevor Lawrence to death last year. And then you're just kind of like, okay, we're doing too much here, right? Like we're just trying to invent something that isn't there. And he's the guy that's this year I remember when Myles Garrett came out and Myles Garrett talked about things that he liked outside of football and everyone lost their minds. Like how dare a person like something other than football? And that's the same thing that's happened to Kayvon, to be honest. I think it's either going to go two ways. I think that people are going to overanalyze him and he's going to drop to somewhere 7 to 10, somewhere in that ballpark, because I can't see him getting past the New York Jets at 10. I can't. I just can't imagine that ever happening. Or we're going to come full circle and Detroit's going to draft him at number 2. And we're just going to be like, oh, yeah, they were just making something that wasn't there, right? So his narrative is weird. There are things that you definitely can pick apart about his game, like his pass rush plan needs refinement. He has had some durability issues over the last couple of years. Like there are definitely things that you can nitpick, but the whole he doesn't love football thing, that's just incredibly overblown. So I think he's just the player that everyone's just overanalyzing a little bit. Kyle Hamilton, look, man, I mean, for my money, I think he's the best player in the draft. And I know some people will probably say, like, I'm biased or whatever. But
I agree with that. I actually agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, and so like I just like to put it out there in the universe for a second. It's like I feel like I am typically way harsher grader on Notre Dame players because I watch them so much.
Give me your Eichenberg grade right now. I'll tell you that's good, bro.
I had a late 2 on Eichenberg, so he was relatively in the range, man. He was relatively in the range. But I mean, for Hamilton, I feel like if there's any player that's close to a generational player in this class, it's him because he's 6'4" and 1/8, 220 pounds, 33-inch arms, playing safety. Like, you know the guys that are doing that? Nobody right now, but it was Kenny Easley back in the day. It was Steve Atwater. Sean Taylor was a similar size. And then you get to the more like Jaron Curse. Like, there's just not guys that are that size profile that are playing in the NFL right now, right? So he's the only guy that I think is even close to that generational label. And he does some freaky things, man. Like at that size, he's playing single. Last year as a sophomore, he played 55% of his snaps as a single high free safety at 6'4", 220 pounds. Like it doesn't make any logical sense. And you see the backside hash interception going to the sideline against Florida State, which everyone just kind of overplays. But like that's special stuff, man. And then he goes to the combine. And I know I talked to Kyle at the pro day, and he thought he was going to run in the 4.4s. Like that's what he had been testing at. For whatever reason, runs 4.59. All the other testing was pretty good across the board. I mean, he had like a 38-inch vert for that size, 10-10 broad, like good numbers. And I think his short shuttle was pretty good too, if I remember correctly. But 4.59, and people are losing their minds. Well, I have to tell you, man, Jesse Bates ran 4.57 and a much smaller player than a guy like a Kyle Hamilton. 4.59, when you take this size into consideration, it's not very slow. It's just people had a expectation that this kid was going to be like freak of all freaks.
Yeah.
But on film, there's no speed concerns. I put on Twitter, like, someone post a clip where there's speed concerns, and I got crickets. Nobody posted a darn thing, right? So,
and it's not like you don't have the follower count. It's not like you don't have the follower count. You got over 30,000 followers, so it's not like you don't got the follower count for someone to post.
I know, man.
So then, okay, explain to me the Travon Walker rise, because I don't see it, bro. I'll be 110% with you. I do not see this top 5. I think he's the most overhyped player by a country mile in this draft, bro.
Yeah. No, I agree with you to a large extent. I said I think I put it on Twitter. I was like, if I'm talking mid to late first here, I'm cool with it because it's not the best draft at the top this year. Like there's more. This is more a draft predicated on depth than it is the top end talent. So I'm good with a guy taking a gamble of someone like this, maybe at like even as early as like pick 12, 14. Like if Baltimore Ravens took him at 14, I'd be like, cool, that makes sense. Like they just struck gold, it seems, with Odafe last year. So like it makes sense kind of betting on traits. And that's the tough part reason, honestly, it's because the edge position is, you need that testing. Like you need those traits. Those things translate. They do. I mean, I have missed on a couple guys in my past, like Curtis Weaver and Derek Barnett, where I'm just like, oh, but look at the nuance, look at the pass rush plan, and then they're just not great athletes, right?
That's what I missed hard on Curtis Weaver with that because of that, bro.
Right, exactly. I mean, yeah, man, and I was excited when he went to the Dolphins. I was like,
so was I, dude.
Late round steal.
No, I was hyping him up. I'm like, bro, and I nailed the pick. I'm like, beautiful. And then, yeah, you know what I mean? You know, so I get that.
Yeah, I mean, traits at edge just matter so much. That's why, that's why he's getting bumped up to the spot he is. And I mean, in all honesty, Aiden Hutchinson's kind of the assumed number one edge, and I'm not the biggest Hutchinson fan. I think in a good year, he's probably in the similar range to where I'm talking about Walker, like middle of the first round. But he's being talked to that because he had a nice season, and his testing was good enough. So,
would you take Thibodeau over both of them?
Yes, yeah. Thibodeau's Thibodeau's my edge one comfortably. And honestly, Travon Walker would not even be my 2 or 3. I think I'd have him at like number 4 right now because I honestly like Ajabo more than Travon Walker. Because if we're gambling on upside, he has a lot of upside too. And I get the Travon Walker thing again. Like I understand it. 6'5", 272, 4.51, 40-inch vert. Like when you put his numbers next to a Myles Garrett, for instance, he's like better in every category. So like I understand it. Trust me. But my thing is that in that defense, you're asking him to 2-gap a ton. You're asking him he's very linear. Like I don't see a bender. I don't see a guy that's an outside track dude, which is fine. He doesn't have to be that guy. But at the first overall pick, I'm just not taking that guy because I don't see high volume sack guy. I see a really good run defender, who has flashes of linear ability as a pass rusher, can hit some inside track moves, can rush from the interior at times, but then even you put him up on those metrics, and like, I'm a film guy, I'm not a analytics guy too much, but like all the metrics say like he's not even winning at a high pass rush rate, and he's not winning in positive ways. Like he's not a quick winner as a pass rusher. A lot of his stuff is cleanups or pressures off of twists or stunts or different things. Like it's just not high rate of success as a pass rusher. So I get the hype for him. I would draft him somewhere in the middle of the first round, but I'm definitely like first overall, no. Second overall, no. Yeah. But I'm here to tell you, if you're a betting person out there, which I am around draft season, I would bet a little bit of money on Travon Walker potentially going number 2 overall to the Detroit Lions. I think it's real. I do think it's real, man.
Wow. That's crazy. That's craziness. Let's talk about and we'll get into these positions specifically in a minute. Another player I was really high on, because I'm like you, I'm film first. I actually really rarely take analytics into it. And the first time I ever let combine numbers affect me in my whole evaluation process was this year with Kyron Williams at the combine. Kyron Williams. He's still on my man crush list. I'm going to drop my man crush list tomorrow morning on Twitter. But and by the way, just to say, I know you're making that point about Travon Walker with the pass rush. Someone put out like pass rush win rate numbers recently on Twitter. I was scrolling by it, and I'm pretty sure Travon Walker was like one of the lowest in this class. He was like in and around like 10%.
I think it was Austin Gale from PFF, because he's been kind of like posting a lot of those win rates. Yeah. He only won like
really low.
He only won like, it was like 10% of his pass rush reps he won, and then it was only like 8% playing from the interior too. It's a scary number, man. It's scary.
Yeah. So, anyways, sorry. So Kyron Williams, he's still on my man crush list. I knocked him from 2 to 7. All right, he dropped because I was just like, and you know what it was? Dude? You know how you just talked about putting Travon Walker up, his athletic profile up against, Myles Garrett, and you see, okay, well, the thing is, when you take Kyron Williams' athletic profile and you look at running backs who have tested with that profile, Kyron Williams has to be like a major outlier to be like a competent NFL starter when you look at the athletic profile. And I was just like, I'm not hitching my number 2 wagon to that. I'll drop you and you'll still be a man crush. And that's the first and only time I've ever done that. What did you think about Kyron's testing? And do you see him as a legit UDFA now?
No, I think he's still going to get drafted somewhere early on day 3. I think he's still going to be like a 4th round to 5th round type of conversation. I think Dane Brugler had him recently in the 4th round mock. And I trust Dane. Obviously, he's very well connected to the NFL. So I think he's still going to get drafted. His film's too good not to get drafted, in my opinion. And you're right. And I talk about this all the time. It's hard to bet on an outlier. And I don't blame NFL teams for it, because, I mean, the hit rate is just so much lower, because you're literally betting on a guy that the data says is not going to be successful at the NFL level. And I get it, especially Kyron, because, I mean, 2 things that you never want to be is small and not athletic, right? Like, that is a big red flag. And at only 199 pounds, which he weighed at the pro day, he only actually weighed 194 at the combine. 4.65 is a terrible time. Like, it's just terrible. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I thought he was going to be somewhere mid 4.5s. Like, I thought 4.56, 4.55, and then I'd be like, okay, check. It's good enough, because that's, he's not a breakaway runner. Like, it's just not what he is. I think he's explosive though on film, and that's the part that really worried me the most, was like 32-inch vert and 9.8 broad. I'm like, man, those are just bad numbers. Like, it's just not good. But then he went to the pro day. He bettered the 40. It was 4.56, 4.55 on my watch. It's a little better. Okay. And then he finally did the short shuttle and 3-cone, which were both good. And that at least gives me hope that this kid is at worst a situational pass catching back, right? Like, cause he can run routes. I mean, if you go back to his high school days, he's out of the St. Louis area. He was a dominant pass receiver, man. Like, he played almost as much wide receiver in high school as he did running back, and that translates. Like, he can run routes. It's not like an outlet receiver or even just a screen runner. Like, this guy can legitimately go in the slot, run routes. I mean, at the pro day, Kevin Austin, their wide receiver that's coming out this year, he would run a route anywhere on the formation, and then Kyron would go run the same exact route, like outside the numbers, inside the numbers, from the running back position. So, like, Kyron can run routes, and he's the best pass blocking running back in this draft, bar none. Like, just a dominant run blocker. So I still think there's a floor where he's going to play a lot in the NFL. There's going to be the question, is he James White or is he Austin Eckler? And I think he's somewhere in between. I'm not ready to say that he's going to be Austin Eckler because Eckler's just a little more explosive than Kyron is. But I still think also that he's a better version of James White because James White, you're just not going to run the ball to a ton. I mean, he's a really good pass catcher. He handled the pass blocking responsibilities well, but he's never been a guy that has any volume at all as a runner. I think Kyron has more natural instincts. I think he's a tougher runner. I think he always finishes forward. He's got good contact balance. So I think he's going to play at the NFL level. I just have some reservations on how good he's going to be. But if you told me that he ends up being Devonta Freeman, who I keep comping him to, I wouldn't doubt it, man. Because running back such a situationally dictated conversation. Like if he gets drafted to the right team, I could see him being a 1,000-yard back at some point in his career. Like I don't think this is the end all because we've seen Philip Lindsay run for 1,000 yards during his career. Like size isn't everything, and I think Kyron's film is really good. So I'm still holding out hope. But I do think that he brings in at least a solid enough floor where he can be a situational pass catcher, if nothing else, at the next level.
So let's talk about the running back position for a bit. We'll start there. So the Dolphins, they have picks 102, 125, 224, and I believe 247. I believe their biggest needs right now, especially when you look at the running back room, when they've added Chase Edmonds, and they've also added, what's his face? Wow, I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, Raheem Mostert. They have Myles Gaskin. They kept Salvin Ahmed around. They added Alec Ingold as a fullback. They really don't have a third down or a red zone guy, it looks like right now, in that outside zone scheme. So let's start there. So I think, that third down, that running back I just explained is what they need. I think they're going to try Austin Jackson or Eichenberg at right tackle. So we'll see how that works out. So technically they might need competition at right tackle. They need competition at center with Dieter. They need an inside linebacker, and they potentially need some edge depth here too. And they can always add a wide receiver, especially in this offense, right? So let's start off with running back here. I think this is something that could be, unless a guy like James Cook falls at 102, I don't think they're going to address that really high at 102. So I wanted to ask you about certain guys who I think could be in the range of when they're picking.
Sure.
One of my favorite sleepers in this draft is actually Sincere McCormick.
Okay.
And he's a guy who could be around in the 200s. Maybe a Devontae Price from FIU could be there in the 200s. Talk about some guys you think might be there in the 200s that could fit the outside zone scheme third down role. So guys that can pass catch, get to the edge quick, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think of some of these guys like a Sincere McCormick, if Damian Pierce is there, if Devontae Price is there? What are your thoughts potentially on some of those guys?
Well, I really like Devontae Price, and I'm glad you mentioned him a little bit because he's been a guy that I've been pretty high on since the summer. Actually, I actually had him as my 5th ranked running back in our recent rankings over at the podcast.
Oh, wow.
So I'm a big fan of him, man. Obviously, he played on a really bad Florida international team this past year. Like he had a really nice abbreviated 2020 season. I think he had over 600 yards in only like 6 games, and it was averaging like 6 point something yards a carry. And he's an interesting body type because he went to the Senior Bowl, and I think it was only 6'1", 198 pounds. And it was weird because he was verified at 225 when they came through for junior days in the spring. So it was just kind of like, why are you that light for Senior Bowl? I guess it was just, to run routes and just kind of show his ability to play in space. But then he comes to the combine. He's back up to about 210, and he runs 4.38. And you're like, oh, okay. All right. He's got a juice to him. And that's on film. I mean, it absolutely is. I thought he was more mid 4.4 type of guy, like 4.45, 4.46. But like either way, dude can move. And he's played again, like up to near 225 pounds. And he's got kind of that one cut and go style. Like he's not really, there's nothing really finesse about him. Like he doesn't make a ton of players miss in space, but he's just a guy that gets vertical in a hurry, and he's got a lot of juice to him. And in a wide zone system, that's a perfect fit. Like that is absolutely perfect. Raheem Mostert, you talked about a second ago, like he's not the most quick twitch back of all time, but like that dude has home run speed. So he puts his foot in the ground, he gets vertical in a hurry, right? So I think that he makes a lot of sense in that system. Sincere McCormick, too, to agree, he's not quite as bursty as he is, but he's got something too. I mean, greatest nickname of all time. They call him Run. Like awesome nickname for Sincere McCormick as well. So
say that again. You broke up. Say that one more time.
Oh, did I break up? Oh, I just said he has the greatest nickname of all time, Run MC, which is fantastic. Yeah. I really like that nickname. If I had to throw out one that I think not 200 range, but could be in the 100 something range, Rashad White from Arizona State's an interesting player. Like he's got,
I love Rashad.
A good body on him, right about 210, 15 pounds. He's got some nice speed, 4.4 something in the 40 at the combine. I don't.
You're breaking up pretty hard.
He's the most. I don't think he's the most.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Let's. Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, so go over on Rashad White again because you broke up pretty bad while you were talking about Rashad.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so he's like I said, 210 to 215 pounds or so. He's got nice vertical burst. I think he ran like in the 4.4s at the combine. So he's another guy that's one cut and go. Not really a change of direction, going to make you miss in space guy. But again, in that wide zone system where you're asking him to really kind of string, be patient, and then hit the home run, I think he has a lot of potential in that system. So I like that scheme fit a ton.
What do you think of a guy like Jerome Ford out of Cincinnati?
I don't love him in the wide zone system, to be honest, because like he's got nice vertical speed, which tell you like he fits that. But I think he's more just a traditional inside zone gap power type of runner. And I mean, I saw him live when they played against Notre Dame, and he's very physical. He's got a nice explosiveness to him. Like there's no doubt at all. I don't think there's much creativity to him, though, which is why I think he's just a little limited to maybe just more inside zone type of system than wide zone. But if you're looking for a guy that's just, vertical burst and powerful, I think that Ford has a lot to offer, obviously, out of Cincinnati. Former Alabama kid, so.
Do you think James Cook is the best fit, probably out of all the running backs in this scheme, what we want to run?
Yeah, I think James Cook's a good fit for everyone, to be honest, because he's just, at worst, he brings really nice pass catching chops. Yeah. And he's a guy that I think he has more power than people give him credit for. Like he's just a little undersized, kind of like Kyron. He's only about 199 pounds, so he's not going to be an every down back. But I think wide zone, inside zone, I think there's a lot to like with a guy like a James Cook. He's going to be a really nice 1B to a compliment, I think, at the NFL level.
Yeah, I love him. My buddy Nick Hicks, who works at Perform and trains Tua, he trains James Cook as well as Dalvin. So he's been given the inside track on James, and he's explosive as hell, man. Not obviously everyone sees Dalvin and thinks but he's not the same back, but he's explosive, man. He's
they run similarly though. They do run similarly. It's obviously Dalvin's a little more of a souped up version, but they do have kind of a similar running style.
I just wanted to ask quickly. I know we're not going to touch them because they're going to be long gone. The top of the draft for me, top 3 was Brees, Kenneth, Isaiah. What? And then it was Rashad. I had Rashad White as my 4th running back. Who are your top 3 of this class?
We have the same ones. So I have a clear tier break after running back 1, actually. I know that some people have kind of Brees Hall, Kenneth Walker as the top tier, but I think Brees is the best running back in the class, man. Like 217 pounds, 4.31, 40-inch vert. You saw he did at Iowa State this picture. Like he just kind of lulls you to sleep, and then he's just got more traits than you would anticipate just because of how patient of a runner he is. So he's my clear top tier running back. I think Kenneth Walker is probably the next tier for me. And then I would down to a guy like an Isaiah Spiller. I like Isaiah. I think he has very surprising quick feet for a big back. Like he makes some guys miss in space. I just don't think he's a great overall athlete. Like a good athlete. But I think that Kenneth Walker and Brees just overall are just a little of high. Obviously this year for Michigan State, and he had 4.38 at the combine as well, and he had dynamic testing in that regard, and he's probably the best pure runner of any of the running backs in the class. I like the combination that Brees brings overall in the class.
And the last guy I'm going to ask you about, I'm a huge Matt Araiza guy. I can't believe the dream died with Morstead, but here we are. Pierre Strong Jr. Is he another guy
Yeah.
you think would fit what we want to do perfectly?
Yeah, I mean, first on the rise, man. He's in everybody's mock draft, so everyone
know,
loves
eh?
him too.
If you don't take him at 100, around 100, you ain't mocking right, bro.
Oh man, the punt god, man. You gotta get the plug in there for sure. Pierre fits, yeah, for sure. I think wide zone is perfect for him. Is another kid that ran in the 4.3s, and that was kind of what that South Dakota State offense really, dictated. Obviously, this past year is they're going to string things laterally, and then they're going to hit it up inside and be an athlete, right? Like if you watch the North Dakota State game this year, the second play of the game, he did the same thing and just broke on run. And I mean, they have a good offensive line there, but I think he really took advantage of a lot of things. If anybody out there is really a big draft nerd, I would keep an eye out for the right tackle next year, Garrett Greenfield. And if he ends up being a dude, which I think he can be a dude, just remember Ryan Roberts told you, okay? Just put the receipts out there if you can. But yeah, I think Pierre Strong's a really solid fit. And he's a guy, even though he's getting a lot of conversation now, I think he could be a guy that's still there, 4th round. Like, it's possible because, I mean, there's a lot of depth to this running back group. Like, there might not be. I think Brees is up there in any class, for the most part. Maybe not running back 1. Like next year, he's probably like running back 2 or 3 because of Bijan Robinson. But like for the most part, he's usually an early 2nd round type running back. But there's not a ton up top. But the depth in this class, I think there's a lot of guys that you can really work with because especially if you're Miami. I like Chase Edmonds. Just gets injured a ton. Then you get Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert's explosive as anything, and I always draft him in fantasy because he goes a value for when he plays, but hurt. He's obviously dealt with injuries as well.
Yeah. So would you put him? Question: would you put Breece Hall above Jahmyr Gibbs or Tank Bigsby?
It's so early, man. I'll say this: I actually did just watch Tank B, but I prefer Breece Hall to what Bigsby is right now. Yeah, I do. Okay. Gibbs is going to be an interesting one because that kid is lightning in a bottle. Like that is.
I know.
That is like I compared him already to Jamal Charles a little bit. Like that's who he reminds me of. I'm not saying he's quite as fast as Charles because Jamal Charles was just like a freak, but yeah, man, he's really good. So it'd be a tough conversation, but either way, everyone's going second fiddle to Bijan Robinson next year. That kid is an absolute freak out of Texas.
Yo, do you think he goes in the top 10?
It's possible, man. Like running backs.
I think he does. I think he does, bro. I think he breaks the running backs don't matter thing. I think he's the first one to break it in since Barkley.
Yeah. No, it's possible, man. It's possible. I watched him and I'm just like, I wasn't the biggest fan at first because I'm like, vision is great. Him, hit a jump cut, just kind of outrace everyone. I'm like, oh, this guy's different. Like, what are you gonna say? He looks like Adrian Peterson, man. Like he's the real deal.
Yeah, he's a real deal. Okay, so at 102, 125, the realistic positions I think they're gonna target are center and linebacker. So let's start with linebacker first. Now I'll just go over some names for you. Some guys who. First of all, Channing Tindall.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on him? Because I had him at 11, and the more I think of it, I even said it. I had him lower than I probably should have had. I kind of actually like this class a little bit. What are your thoughts overall on Channing Tindall? And his fit as a Mike in a 3-4, 4-3.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. First and foremost about the linebacker class, I like it too. I think there's a lot of depth to this class. It really is a much better class than I thought it was going to be. Tindall is, the kid's a freak athletically. He's a high 4.4 athlete, explosive. He has some of the best run and chase pursuits that you'll find in this class. His eyes are improving. The thing is that he never started a game at Georgia, right? Because they had obviously Nakobe Dean and even Quay Walker this past year. They had Monty Rice the year before. So they've had a bunch of dudes at linebacker. I'll say this though, long term, I like Tindall more than I like Quay Walker. I don't know if that's like a hot take, but the kid's explosive. He's got better eyes than Quay Walker, in my opinion. I think they're only getting better. The only thing about him though, Mike, is that I don't see him as this big physical dude, right? Getting downhill. I don't know if that's him. He reminds me a little more actually of Jerome Baker, that already plays
as a will.
Like a run and chase, a guy that plays in pursuit. Like that's what I see with Channing Tindall, but like the kid can fly, man. So I can work with those traits all day.
What did you think of one of my favorite sleepers who I think is very instinctual? Darren Beavers out of Cincinnati. What are your thoughts on Darren Beavers? The guy's a former safety who can literally play Mike. He can play on that strong side. He's even come off straight off the edge for Cincinnati. What are your thoughts on him? Now, I know he's not an overly impressive athlete and his lateral quickness isn't going to blow you away, but what are your thoughts about Darren Beavers?
See, it's weird. I love Chanel in this class, and I feel like Darren Beavers was yeah, man, he's so good. But I think that Darren Beavers was the guy that people were trying to make what Leo Chenal is a little bit early, right? Like he's this very scheme diverse player. And I remember, especially if Brian Flores was still the coach, how they typically run defense, I'd be like, Darren Beavers, yes.
That's how we're running it the same. We're running it the same.
Running the same. Okay, then you should be copacetic then as far as how Beavers fits. Because, length for days, 6'4", 255 pounds. I think he's a prototype Sam, and he can play on ball a ton, and he did it Cincinnati. I was at the Notre Dame game where he was playing between Mike, Will, and Sam, and then on third downs, they would put him down as like a defensive end and just let him rush the passer. So you can do a lot of Darren Beaver. I don't think he's ever going to be a guy in coverage that's phenomenal, but like a guy that's an early down run defender playing Mike and Sam somewhere in that ballpark, and then use him as a sub package rusher and try to use the rush variety that he has. I think he can play a lot, man. And in that new style system, if Miami's still playing that, like you said, fit makes perfect sense.
Okay, so my two biggest crushes in this linebacker class, and they're gonna be on my man crush list. I wanted you to talk about them, and is there a possibility you see them even there at 102? Chad Muma out of Wyoming, Leo Chenal out of Wisconsin. Do you see any chance of them even being available at 102?
No, I really don't, man. I don't want to break the dream, but like Muma, I don't think Muma gets out of the second round for what I'm hearing. And he's long, explosive, running. I like him more than Logan Wilson when he came out of Wyoming. Like I like him a ton more. So he's got a late 2 on my draft grade, and I think he's going to go somewhere in the second round. Like I think it's safe. He's a really explosive player, and he's got length. Like he's going to go pretty early. Chenal's a weird one, man. Like I actually have heard some people say like late first. Some people like him in that range. And then I've heard third round grades. So like he maybe could be there, but like I
see Zach Thomas for days, eh? Like I watch him, I'm like, I see Zach Thomas for freaking days in terms of nose around the football. Like the way Zach was always around the football. I'm like, holy crap, dude. Because I loved what's his face. Remember, he came out 2 classes ago out of Wisconsin.
TJ Edwards?
No, was it 2 classes ago?
You're talking about the kid Schobert, right? Joe Schobert?
No, man. What the hell? It'll come to me. But I look at this man and I'm like, dude, 6'2", 250, 4'5", 340, 34 bench, 1.5 second, 10-yard split, buddy, a 40.5 vertical, a 10-foot 5-inch broad jump. Like this guy in the system we run. Yeah. Tell me Leo Chenal is literally not the ideal Mike. That is boom. That's the guy, bro.
Nah, man, he's fantastic. We actually had Leo on the podcast after he tested at the combine. He was actually disappointed in his vertical. He said he was hitting like 42s in the pre-draft process. Bro. I'm like, yeah, man. He's the best run stopping linebacker I think I've ever evaluated, man. Like just his ability to stack and shed at the point of attack. He's always in the right gap and just physical. Just so, his hands are heavy, man, and he just understands how to attack leverage. So he's fantastic in that regard. And honestly, one of the best interior blitzers I've ever seen too, man. Like he's not your traditional like on ball going to pass rush, but like blitzing A gaps, blitzing B gaps. I mean, the dude has some silly closing speed.
His film is so fun. Like
it's so good. Yeah,
so fun to watch, bro.
Yeah, I know.
And Zach Bond was who I was thinking of.
Zach Bond. Oh, okay. So you were talking about the edge. Got it.
Yeah. I love Zach, but I love Leo. He's one of my biggest crushes of this whole draft, bro.
Yeah, man. I don't want to break it to you, man, but like he's a guy that like I could see New England just taking like late
I
first
know.
round. You know what I mean? Just tormenting you for a few years.
Dude, that guy's a first round. I don't think I only have 23 first round grades, and he is one of the few that holds those.
He's a top 25 player in this class for me. Like I think he's fantastic, man. Like again, some people are gonna pick apart the coverage stuff. Again, it's like the running back if they can be a pass game receiver, right? If they're not used that way, it's kind of hard to tell. But like 4.53 with decent length and 40-inch like that guy's got to be able to play a little bit of spot coverage. Like you're just playing zone at that point. Like I'm not asking him to cover a tight end man to man. I'm not asking him to do that type of stuff. But like as a spot dropper, I think he can do that stuff. At worst, he can sure as hell blitz for you. I mean, this is a guy that's I think is a perennial 100+ tackles. 10 plus tackles for loss. I mean, he had 115 tackles and 18 tackles for loss in 11 games this year. Like the kid's just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Another guy I wanted to talk to, converted quarterback, and I think he's better than what Chaz Surratt was. Troy Anderson out of Montana State. I think he's another one. If he's there at 102, they got to seriously consider. What are your thoughts on Troy Anderson out of Montana State? Another kid I absolutely love, man. I love this linebacker class, bro.
Man, I mean, again, I'm a little bit of a draft nerd, so I love the backstories. I mean, the kid is if you want to look at his high school career, man, just like insane stuff. I mean, he was like a 800 meter yard dash runner for a track and field team coming out of high school, which is just an absurd time for a guy his size. And he came to Montana State and the plan was to play linebacker, but then there were some injuries at quarterback. He holds the Montana State record with 21 rushing touchdowns in a season. Like he is just an absurd player. And like he just was, all right, now we're going to move him to linebacker. He's too good. He's rushing for a lot of yardage. Eventually in 2020, he's a full-time linebacker. They played in the 3-4 system. He was playing more like an on-ball Sam type of role. So it was a little weird. And then this past year, they finally moved him to like a true stacked inside linebacker position. And I thought that his game just really got enhanced. His eyes need some work. There's no doubt. Combine at 6'3", 240+ pounds, runs 4.42. Like this kid's an absolute freak of nature. And I mean, it makes there's no doubt when you just kind of look at his background that you knew he was going to be some type of freak tester. So I think that he can be at 102 because again, this class is, I mean, just for some context for everyone out there, last year, I think there was, I was told by an agent, there were 650 players draft eligible last year that applied for drafted. This year, it's 3 times as much. So there's like 2,000 players in this draft this year because of the COVID extra year and everything. So this is a deep class. There's a lot of players, a lot. So I think that some guys are going to go a little later than people think just because there's just a high volume of players. So I think Troy could be there. And I think he can play Mike eventually. Maybe early on he's better because you just kind of want him to chase and play in pursuit. But he's got the size and he's got the length where I see no issues that he can't continue to add power and get his eyes better because he's a really good athlete, man. There's a lot of good athletes in this year's linebacker group.
All right, let's pivot off. Actually, two guys I want to ask you about quickly. Terrell Bernard out of Baylor and Mike Rose out of Iowa State. What are your thoughts on those two guys? I loved Mike Rose too. And I think Terrell Bernard's a really good player. He can be a Mike. I think he could be a Will because I think his frame's going to lead him to be a Will. And he has the intelligence to play Mike, but I think his frame's going to lead him to be a Will at 6'1", 224. What are your thoughts on Bernard and Mike Rose?
Yeah, I mean, Mike Rose reminds me a lot of Blake Martinez. I'm not saying he's quite going to have the career arc of him, but he's just like so physical, and he's downhill and he's an early down run stopper. But there's definitely going to be some limitations to him in pass coverage because he's not the most quick twitch athlete. Like he's not super fluid, but he's just a very dependable player. Like I get in an early down, solid Mike linebacker, like maybe not a guy with a ton of upside, but dependable is kind of the word that I think of when Mike Rose. Terrell Bernard. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mike Rose he's played a lot of football, man. He's played good football, and he actually played between Mike Will during his Iowa State career because he was a little lighter early on in his career. I mean, he was like 6'2", 6'3", 230 pounds throughout the first couple years, and then he kind of bulked up to like 250 this past year. So I think he's a really solid Mike that can play on the NFL level, and I think you can get a value somewhere on day 3 with the Mike Rose. Terrell Bernard, I know you talk about draft crushes. Terrell Bernard's been one of mine this whole draft process, man. I watched his tape in the summer, and I'm just like, I agree with you. He's going to have to play well because he just doesn't have length. He doesn't have size. But, man, maybe the best eyes of any linebacker in this class. Like, he is just always in the right spot. And then I talked to him in the preseason, and he was just talking to me how much he studies Fred Warner and just, you know, getting in the passing game and kind of impacting and coverage. And you see everything there. And there's going to be some limitations because he just doesn't have a lot of length. And that's going to lead to stacking at the point of attack. There's going to be some times where he just gets over engulfed a little bit. There's going to be some passing windows that he can't close in zone coverage. Like, there's going to be there. But eyes, he plays more physical than his size. There's no doubt. And he's got plus speed. Like, he's a good athlete overall. So I think someone's going to get tremendous value because I originally thought like he might go somewhere in the 3rd round. I think he could be a guy that's there somewhere on day 3. And I think that someone who might have a starting linebacker somewhere on day 3 because there's just some unteachables that are hard to quantify with a guy like Terrell Bernard because those eyes are just so fast. But some people are going to look at him and just be like, he's undersized and he might just be kind of a will-only type of player. And that's fine because I think that a team's going to get a good value with him because I think that he has starting level traits on the next level.
All right. So another position that is they've mentioned multiple times that they want to bring competition in is center.
Yep.
And we talked about this before we went live. We were both pretty unimpressed with this center class. I mean, Tyler Linderbaum, it's crazy. He has like such amazingly good film. And then everyone else is just like kind of like an effort to get, to be honest with you, some of the next funnest film I found next to him was like Luke Fortner. What are your overall thoughts on this center class? I mean, other than Linderbaum, probably each one of the guys might be available at 102. Like, that tells you where this class is at. I think Linderbaum is better than Creed Humphrey too. I think he's special. What are your overall thoughts on this center class?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as Jared Patterson from Notre Dame went back to school and Ricky Stromberg from Arkansas went back to school, I mean, that was kind of the depth in this class. That was like the secondary options. And I mean, honestly, I think that both those guys could have at least threatened Tyler Linderbaum because I just think they're a little more of scheme diverse than Linderbaum is. But right now it's Linderbaum and then just a whole lot of question marks in the center class. Like, it falls off the table real quick. But one reason that I think that is going in Miami's favor a little bit if you're trying to bring in some competition is I do think there's some intriguing wide zone system centers in this class, right? Like, I don't think that, you know, like Cameron Jurgens from Nebraska is a guy we talked about a little bit before the show, right? Like Zach Tom is a guy from Wake Forest. Arizona State has Donovan West in this class. Dylan Parham from Memphis. Like, they're all good athletes for the position. So there's developmental potential. I don't think any of them is going to be a guy that you want to start from day one, but like, if you want to stash somebody there at 102 per se and let them work at the spot with Dieter for a couple of years and let them kind of get developed, I think that there is some developmental potential for that system specifically. So I think that plays into Miami's favor. But to answer your original question, it's definitely not a great center class at Tyler Linderbaum. There's no doubt about it.
One player I've been adamant that I think we're going to try and draft is Alec Lindstrom out of Boston College. He was actually my 5th center, but that's because the center class isn't very good. Well, because I've told people, like, I don't even, outside of Linderbaum, if you want my honest opinion, outside of Linderbaum, I would probably draft West, Jurgens, or Fortner. I probably wouldn't even draft Lindstrom, but I think they're going to draft it because of familiarity, because we got Matt Applebaum. What are your overall thoughts on Alec Lindstrom?
I mean, he's undersized. He's a pretty good athlete, though. He moves pretty well. Works the second level
probably
well.
One of the best lateral movers in this class. I thought. Yeah.
No, I agree. He reminds me a little bit of Sean O'Hara that used to play with the New York Giants a bit. So, like, I think that there is some upside to him in a specific scheme, like I would say personally. But there are just going to be a lot of limitations with him, like definitely not his brother. Definitely not his brother. He just doesn't have length. He doesn't have a ton of power. He is a wide zone only player, but in your system, he does fit. So it would make sense as a backup center. I'm not high on him either. And I know, just kind of how you kind of went through it a little bit. Like, I can tell that you're not very high on him either. So I think that he can definitely be a depth piece at the next level. I just think that he lacks traits to be a starter per se, but in your system and the familiarity with Applebaum, like you said, it makes sense. It does make sense somewhere in day 3.
Do you have Cole Strange as a guard or a center?
I have him as a center, actually. I do.
Okay. I'm as a guard.
He would probably be, and he could definitely play guard because, I mean, he started nothing but guard during his career at Kentucky. I think he may have played like 1 or 2 games of tackle. So, yeah, I think that he's an interchangeable player. I just really liked what I saw. He kind of reminded me a little bit, and they're not the same player, but last year when the guard from Wisconsin Whitewater came and he had a what's that? Yeah, Quinn Miners. Yep, Quentin Miners went down to the Senior Bowl. He had only played guard in his career too, and I actually thought he looked really good as a center. And I kind of had the same feelings with Cole Strange. Like the kid is 6'6" and has decent length for the position, so like he could definitely play guard. There's no doubt. I like him a little at center because I just really like the progress he made during the Senior Bowl week. Like I felt every time he had a bad rep, he came back with a really good one. He is a physically strong dude. I think can still add weight, but like he has a lot of torque in his lower half. He's got some explosiveness, and he's a nasty dude. Like he gets after it. So I'm a fan of Cole Strange. He would probably be the second center off the board for me. Probably. I do like Parham from Memphis a little bit. Like I think he checks a lot of boxes. So those are my 2 guys that I would probably take somewhere on day 2. But yeah, I do like Strange. Whether you like him at guard or center, I think he has starter upside though. Overall.
Yeah, I got Strange, Parham, and Zion Johnson as guards. I didn't actually put them at center. Your thoughts on Fortner and Donovan West? Because I know there's a lot of people actually split specifically on Donovan West. There's people that love him some don't love him, like the potential.
Yeah.
There's other people that hate the like. So what are your thoughts on both those players?
He's bizarre. I actually liked him a little bit in the summer. I put like a late 3 on him. I thought there was developmental potential. And I'm right in the same ballpark this year. He's not as great an athlete as you would think of a guy that's playing in a wide zone system, but he's got great hands, man. Like understands leverage, has great hands. He understands how to attack leverage. Like I like a lot of what Donovan West is. I'm told though, a little insight, I guess here. I'm told that most teams have 6-round grades on them. So I don't think the NFL is as high as some media is, like you're kind of illustrating. So I think that someone's going to get him on day 3. I think that he has potential to be a guy that could be a backup and then maybe a starter down the road. I mean, there's a lot of refinement that needs to work in his game because he just doesn't have a ton of power to his game right now. Mm-hmm. But again, in the system that Miami is running, I think it makes sense because he's kind of a weird one because, again, like, I don't think he's a great athlete, but on film, like, man, he just always wins the upfield shoulder and he just has good technique in working in those wide zone systems. So like, I like West for what he is for sure. Fortner, I have a love-hate relationship with Luke Fortner. I like a lot of what he does. Like I think he's a really physical dude. He plays with a nasty streak. So a lot of people think that he's a great athlete. Like I didn't get great athlete on film. Like, I don't know. I think that he's more of a gap power system. Like, and I think that he has some traits to be a good depth piece in that system, but like I don't know if I see great fit in a wide zone system. Like I'm just not sure I see that one.
I just love watching his film because it lets me watch 2023's QB1 Will Levis a little bit more, bro.
Oh, stop. Talk about a love-hate relationship. I'm gonna have a love-hate relationship with Will Levis. Oh my god.
No Will Levis slander on this channel, my friend. Okay. So obviously it looks like it's going to be Austin Jackson or our boy Liam Eichenberg giving it a go at right tackle. Good luck to both.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I know. I think Austin Jackson has the best chance because at least he's got the traits.
True. True.
Let's just quickly. Obviously, we're not going to get an Evan Neal, okay? But I think an Abraham Lucas could be a real possibility here. There's a couple other guys too. You could go at Daniel Flele out of Minnesota, who needs a lot of development, and he scared the crap out of me at the Senior Bowl. Well, him and Trevor Penning, I came away from the Senior Bowl really scared of.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on potential right tackle fits in this class for the Miami Dolphins at 102 or 125? But obviously Abraham Lucas is one. But what other guys? Like I think Abraham Lucas could start over Austin Jackson and Eichenberg. I'm not even joking, bro.
You might not be wrong. You might not be wrong.
So what are your thoughts on potential right tackle guys? Because especially I trust you with moving a left tackle to a right tackle potentially. Well, what guys do you think could fit what we want to do?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think at 102 specifically, I think there's a couple guys that are extremely intriguing that may be more developmental type of players. I mean, for the system, I really like Kellen Diesch out of Arizona State. I'm not sure if he'll be there because he's had a really good pre-draft process and he went to East-West Shrine. I think he had a really good week there, and then he tested. I mean, I think he ran the fastest 40. He had like a 4.88 or 4.89. So I think he was second to Dari Rosenthal, actually, now that I'm kind of thinking about it. But Diesch is a phenomenal athlete. Started his career at Texas A&M, didn't play a ton, and then went to Arizona State, and I thought he had really good film this year. The issue with him is that does not have great length, like 32 and some odd inch arms. So some people are going to question if he can play tackle, but I think he can just because he's got such good foot quickness. Like if you're a guy that lacks length and doesn't have the requisite foot quickness, then that's where you need to move inside, right? Like you can't last on the outside there. But if you have one or the other, you can still make it work. I mean, like Sam Cosmi had sub 33-inch arms, and he ended up being a really good player for Washington this past season.
I love Cosmi coming out.
Oh, man. That was one of my guys. I couldn't believe he fell that far. Yeah. I really could not believe it. But he's a guy that I think suffered because a lot of people overthink it sometimes. They're like, sub 33-inch arms, he can't play tackle. It's like, okay, but like he's got really good foot quickness. So like maybe he could still play tackle. And I think that's Kellen Diesch. And I think that he has some starter potential at offensive tackle just in general in this zone system. And like the differentiation between left tackle and right tackle in Miami's system, I don't think is large because you're playing a wide zone system, which is very niche, obviously. And then you also have Tua, who's a left-handed quarterback. So like, the blind side is now the right side. So makes a ton of sense in that regard. So I like him a ton. I think further down the board a little bit, I don't know if I'd like anybody there, but like I mentioned Dari Rosenthal. I might take a shot at Dari Rosenthal at 102 from Kentucky. He was at LSU originally. He ran 4.8 something. He's got vines for arms. He's a really talented kid. There's a lot of good film on there. Just no power right now. Like there's zero. He's 290 pounds. He needs to gain a good 15, 20 pounds before he's ready to play. But movement skills, he's got traits at offensive tackle. I like Dari Rosenthal for what he is. And then if there was a guy that I want to go just a little deeper, I'd say Matt Waletzko from North Dakota is a guy that's really interesting. I mean, he is.
Ooh, you are going deep.
Yeah, man. He was at the Senior Bowl, so like not super deep, but like 6'6 plus, 300 plus pounds, 36-inch arms, like length for days. And then he tested, right around 5-second flat in the 40, had good explosiveness. He needs technical refinement. He's not a guy that's a finished product at all, but like a lot of traits to work with a guy like Matt Waletzko. He might be one of the day 3 offensive tackles I think this year to have. I think that he's got a lot of potential. But for that top of one, was it 102 or 103 was Miami?
Yeah, 102. Yeah.
102. Yeah. So for 102, I would say though, if Kellen Diesch is there from Arizona State, got to keep an eye on. And then I think that Dari Rosenthal, it might be kind of a little bit of a swing, but I think he has a lot of traits to work with for sure.
You put me on to him last year and I actually fell in love with him and he actually had a really good season. Who's your Spencer Brown for this year?
I don't know if I have an offensive tackle that I would coin as a Spencer Brown. I've talked about this a lot. I'm not really I don't love this offensive tackle class at times.
Yeah, it's okay. Once you get past the top guys, it's like, eh.
Yeah. I guess if anybody was my Spencer Brown, I guess it would be Sean Ryan out of UCLA. I keep praising him on Twitter and no one, digging it too much, but he's got day 2 grades from a lot of scouts and NFL execs that I've talked to. So I think that he goes somewhere 2nd, 3rd round. He's another guy where 6'5", 321 pounds, shorter arms, 32 and 3/4 or something like that. So some people are going to say, is he a guard? Is he a tackle? My answer is yes. Whatever you want him to be. I think he's a really good player, man. He had 33 and a half inch vert, super explosive, 64-foot shot putter in high school. The core strength and flexibility with Sean Ryan is fantastic. There might be some schemes where maybe he's not an offensive tackle because he just lacks a little bit of length. But I think in a wide zone system, that might be another guy. Now I'm kind of talking myself into it a little bit. If he's at 102, I think it's a slam dunk, but I think he might be gone by then. But Sean Ryan's probably my dude this year. I think he is a top 25 player in this class, but people don't appreciate him too much for whatever reason. I don't know exactly why.
Do you have Darian Kennard as a guard?
Yeah, he's a guard for me. I think that he reminds me a lot recent of Kelechi Osemele that came out of Iowa State a long time ago, ended up being a really good guard with the Ravens, with the Ravens and Raiders. And he's a guy that when you look at him from a physical perspective, had the vines, had good size profile. Like he kind of checks a lot of boxes for offensive tackle, but then you watch him play and you're just like demeanor, like that's a guard. Like there's not really limitations from a length perspective, but like he just plays like a guard. He wants to play in small confines. He wants to bully people. That's why he's going to play inside. And I think Osemele actually played a little tackle early on in his Ravens career. And then eventually they're just like, all right, he's got this tough guy demeanor. He's going to play better inside. And I see the same thing with Darian Kinnard. I think that he's going to be a really good guard at the next level. I don't think foot quickness is fantastic. So like, I just don't see tackle on film, but I do see a starting level guard on film.
What are your thoughts on that kid out of Ohio State, Nicholas Petit-Frere?
Oh man, I don't like him at all. I don't like him at all, man. I have a early day 3 grade on him. He's a tough one for me, man, because he was recruited 5-star recruit, had phenomenal foot quickness coming out of the state of Florida and coming up to Ohio State. He actually probably would have ended up at Notre Dame if Harry Hiestand didn't leave for the Chicago Bears job, the offensive line coach. But he goes up to Ohio State, and he was always a really thin guy. He was like 280 pounds coming out of high school, and he was just like very thin everywhere. And I think that Ohio State put too much weight on him. Like he's like 315 pounds now. And I think that his body just can't hold it that well. Like I think that he zapped his foot quickness. So the film this year I thought was bad, man. Like I did not like it at all. But I think that there's a reality where you rework his body a little bit, then you might get some of that foot quickness back. But like right now, I mean, he went to the combine. He had like a 24.5-inch vert, like bad tester, like just really bad stuff. But there was hope at one point. So you might be able to rework him, but like for now, I'm not betting on anything more than a day 3 player, but he's going to go higher than that. But I just personally wouldn't do it.
So let me ask you this. We got 125, 102, 125, 224, 247. Just off the top of your head, would you be trying to just package that all together and move up as far as you can and get whatever your BPA is? Because I mean, and I'm going to do a show about it. You look at the success rate of guys picked at 102 and 125 over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So what would you be doing in that sense? Would you just be saying, screw it, package it all up and go get one guy? Or would you be trying to add all these pieces for depth? Because I know you said you looked at our roster and you didn't see a ton of glaring holes slapping you in the face.
No.
What were your overall thoughts on what would your draft strategy be if you had 102, 125, and 224 and 247? And do you think, given the talent in this class, what we gave up for Tyreek Hill was justified?
All great questions. I think that when I look at Miami's roster, I think that competition at center, I mean, Dieter, I thought had some moments, but he got hurt a little bit, right? Right tackle's a huge question mark. And then I think linebacker that we talked about a little bit could be upgraded, at least at the Mike position. But like outside of that, I mean, secondary's good. You upgraded 2 positions at least on the offensive line, which is a great start. I like Robert Hunt a ton. Wide receiver has obviously been upgraded. So, like, there's a lot. I mean, getting Agba back's a big move, obviously. So, there's not a lot of pressing needs on this Miami roster. So, like, I do subscribe to your thought that, like, hey, if there's a guy that's in a reasonable range and we can trade up to try to get that guy because we might only be a piece or 2 left from making a playoff run potentially, I'm there for it. I just think it's going to more depend on where the staff sees it right now. And I think that the staff thinks in that similar ideology, because I don't think you make that Tyreek Hill trade if you don't think you're close. Like they obviously think they're not too far away. And I do think it's justified because, I mean, honestly, man, like you need to try to make it work with Tua. Like, I like Tua, and I still think that there's a lot of hope for Tua. But you need to surround him with as much talent as you can right now, because there is people that are going to keep questioning him until they kind of shut him up a little bit. So I think it's justified for the fact of getting arguably the best receiver in the NFL. I mean, like Tyreek's, if he's not number 1 to Devontae Adams, then he's like 2 or 3. Like he's a phenomenal player. So I think it's justified. Kind of looking at how the contract's actually broken down. Like originally you're like, oh, 30 mil a year, but then you kind of see like, oh, okay, it's not really actually 30 mil a year. But yeah, but like to that second question, I think it's very justified because now that you have guys like Jalen Waddle and you have obviously Tyreek Hill and even Cedric Wilson, who I think is a very underrated football player. Like,
so do I. Yep.
Tua's in a good spot, man. I think the offense is a good spot. So, yeah, I think if they are able to – if there's a guy they really like and they're able to package to go up to get him, if they only think they're 1 or 2 players away, yeah, I think that's a good ideology to go with because honestly, looking at this roster, I don't think there's a crazy amount of needs. Like, you might need some secondary pass rushers as like a secondary need after like Jalen Phillips and Agba and doing all that type of stuff. But like, everybody needs more pass rushers. That's not like a unique situation in Miami. So I think that if you're going to take your swing, and you already did, you take your swing, obviously trade for Tyreek Hill, you might as well just keep taking the swings, in my opinion.
Were you impressed by Jalen Phillips in year one?
Yeah, I thought I saw every flash I need to see out of Jalen Phillips, right? Like the whole thing about Jalen is he is an incredible talent. There's no doubt about it. His biggest thing was obviously just the injury stuff, right? Like the concussions and trying to figure out the whole thing. If he's on the field, Jalen Phillips is a really good football player. Like, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind about that. So, excuse me. So I think that you saw everything that you need to see out of Jalen. I'm expecting a huge bump because I think he had like 8.5 sacks or somewhere in that ballpark. I'm expecting double digits in year 2. I think he's gonna be a really good player. And
he was on a limited snap count. Did Javon Holland exceed your expectations?
Oh, he sure did. I wasn't a Javon Holland fan at all. So he was a very good player as a rookie. So I kind of eat crow, I guess, on him at least early on right now, because I didn't see the impact as a deep safety that he did in year 1 with Miami, but certainly prove me wrong, man. I'm happy. Like, honestly, like when players prove me wrong, that means that they're being successful. So I was happy to see Javon. I never had any questions about Javon near the line of scrimmage. Never had a question about him in the slot. Like, all that stuff was very evident on Oregon film, but he is a much better deep safety than I originally anticipated him coming out.
You talked earlier about, when we were talking about the tackle position, you know, if you don't have the length, you're going to need the footwork. You're going to need the athleticism. Glaring for Liam Eichenberg last year. You know, he wasn't, I don't know what they're doing, but like even his base looked different from Notre Dame. I don't know whether they're changing them with bands or whatever the hell's going on right there.
Yeah.
Were you really disappointed by, because I'll be honest with you, Liam Eichenberg gave us, you know, just as bad of play as Austin Jackson did at times in year 1. You know, I think people thinking he's going to work at right tackle are psychotic. I think if you were at your natural position and it just wasn't working for you, all of a sudden now you got to go lead with the right side of your body. You got to go do all these things. I don't know if I see that happening. Your overall thoughts on Eichenberg? Do you see this even working out at the NFL level? Because I'm going to be honest with you, Ryan, early on, I don't see it, bud.
No, I mean, it's fair. It's fair. Because the thing about Liam is that Liam does not have great length, and his foot quick, like, he was just such a good technician at Notre Dame. Like, that was how he won. And I did see a lot of Liam because like you said before, my dad is a Dolphins fan. So like, I'm watching it, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, it wasn't good. I mean, like, I have no way to say it. Like, it wasn't good. And if he's not a guy that's playing technically perfect, he's not going to be a great NFL player.
Exactly.
It's just not going to happen. So if he can't get back to where he was his last year at Notre Dame, because like he was really good his last year at Notre Dame. He really was. There's obviously, from an NFL draft perspective, you're going to knock him down because, again, not a great length, solid foot quickness, not great foot quickness, though. Like, it's solid. But, I mean, I don't think he let up a sack his last 2 years at Notre Dame. Like, he was a really good player. This year, I mean, he was a turnstile, man. Like, it just wasn't good. So I am struggling with it a lot because I don't necessarily know if he's a good fit inside a guard either. So, like, he might just be a swing tackle. Like, that might just be what he is because
no problem with that.
Yeah, and I mean, if he ends up being that, like, it's not a great value for a second rounder, but like, if he can at least hold a roster spot, it's fine, right? Like, it's not a disaster.
Someone in the comment section is saying Eichenberg is a right tackle. He played out of his natural position. He's a left tackle, my friend.
Yeah, no, I mean, he didn't play out of his. I mean, he played 1 year, I think, at right tackle at Notre Dame, and then he played 2 years at left. So he's obviously played more at left tackle. So yeah. That's just not correct, to be honest. But yeah. Well, I mean, but also you're moving Austin Jackson over to right tackle too. So it's, I mean,
well, you know what the thing is, Eichenberg, because of his length, we can't even. And the other thing is not even just his length. You're 6'6", 302. You don't have a good, and you see it. He doesn't have a strong enough anchor to even kick inside right now. So
exactly.
It's like, if you're not going to work at tackle, it's like we can't use you at guard. It kind of sucks, especially when Creed Humphrey was on the board, when Miners was on the board still.
Tevin Jenkins was on the board. Yeah, there were some guys on the board, man.
Oh man, I think Tevin Jenkins is going to have a huge year this year.
I think so too.
Back healthy and stuff.
Yeah.
Final question I wanted to actually ask you, and I know you don't, he's obviously an NFL guy. Your thoughts? Actually, I got two questions for you. First fun is on a player. Second, I want to ask you about the Brian Flores thing.
Sure.
just because you know, as an outsider looking in. Terron Armstead, your thoughts of Terron Armstead when he's healthy? I mean, I think he's top 3, you know, in the NFL. You've seen what McDaniel did with Trent Williams last year, motioning him and such. What are your thoughts on Terron Armstead, and if he stays healthy, what he could potentially be in this offense? Do you think he could be better than Trent Williams was in this offense?
Yeah, I mean, hey, when Terron is healthy, he is a fantastic player. There is no doubt. Now, obviously, he's dealt with some injuries, obviously, over the last few years, but he is an excellent football player. Like, he is up there. I think Trent Williams is the best left tackle in football right now, but, like, he is, you know, second or third. Like, if you want to make an argument for me, I'd be like, okay, that's cool. Like, I get it, because Terron Armstead is a silly athlete. I mean, going back to his combine stuff, he ran like 4.72 or some crazy number like that. Like, he is a generational talent as far as like an athletic profile as a tackle. So the minute I saw it, and I knew that it was obviously gonna be a lot of money, I'm just like, but Miami had to do it. Like, they had to do it. They had questions at both tackles. Like, they had to do something, right? And I mean, Terron Armstead, I think, is a really good football player. He's exactly what Miami needs. Makes a ton of sense. And I mean, yeah, if he's healthy, he's one of the top 2 or 3 tackles in the NFL. No doubt about it.
Your final thoughts here. Before we get into you plugging your stuff, I do want to get your thoughts on, because your dad's a Dolphin fan, so you're around it, and plus you're just a football fan, so you're on the outside looking in. Your thoughts on the whole Brian Flores saga and this whole situation, and you can even throw in your thoughts of Mike McDaniel if you want to.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I want to backtrack and I want to start with Mike McDaniel. I'm excited about Mike McDaniel, man. I'm telling you. I didn't really even study him as a play caller as much. I just heard his press conferences when he was the offensive coordinator for the 49ers. And I was like, dude, that dude's infectious. Like, I would play for him. Like, he's weird, but like, he's a good weird. You know what I mean? Like, he's relatable weird. And like, I dig it. So I dig the hire as far as Mike McDaniel. The whole Brian Flores things, I have mixed feelings about it, right? Because like you hear obviously the stuff, and like, I don't know how much of this is true and whatever it is, but like, you know, he's rubbing guys the wrong way. He's alienating people, right? Like, he's alienating players. So like, that stuff is like, if that's all verified and that's all true, then like, okay, you probably need to get out. Like, that makes sense, right? Because like, you're dragging everybody down with you. As far as like the backlash with like the class action lawsuit and stuff, I am going to say this and you know, just keep it as poignant as possible. I respect him for the step that he took, not necessarily the shot at Miami, because like, I didn't think that shot at Miami really made a ton of sense, but like, we know that there's a lot of injustice as far as like the hiring process for minorities. Like, we know that that's a thing. So like, I was like, that's an awesome thing that he's doing there. You're making a class action so like people can join in with you. And he put his NFL future on the line, right? Because like, I mean, they could have easily just been like, no, we're not touching you while this stuff is happening. So I respect the what he's trying to do from that angle. But again, and I'm not taking this to a racial thing for a second. Like, I'm just saying point blank, if he's alienating players, he's alienating ownership, he's alienating other coaches, all that stuff is true, then it's probably not the right fit. Like, I mean, just point blank period to it. So I think that there's some good qualities to what Brian Flores was trying to do in some instances, but like, it just may not have been a good fit in Miami, it seems.
Yeah. And hey, the defense was decent. I mean, we did start off 1-7, but winning 8 of your last 9 games, and the way the defense was going was good. But this guy could never get the offense right. And you look at, I mean, he couldn't get the personnel or the staff right.
That co-offensive coordinator situation was the oddest thing I've ever seen, man. It didn't make any sense. It was just very strange. Oh. I mean, that's like a thing where like, especially offensive coordinator, because I've seen like obviously defensive coordinators where like there's a passing game run coordinator, there's a run game coordinator, and like that stuff works. But like, I've never seen co-offensive coordinators be successful. Like, because again, usually you have your offensive coordinator, you might have a passing game coordinator, you might have a run game coordinator, and like they all work in, you know, together. But like 2 offensive coordinator, that's too many voices, man. Especially for a young quarterback like Tua, he needs one solid voice. You missed out on the opportunity. I mean, what was it, Laser, right? You went from Laser to Chan Gailey to like a dual, like, I mean, Tua has been set up for a failure. Like, let's call it what it is. That's why I'm holding out hope that I think Tua can still be a really good player, because I think that he just has not been put into a right situation so far in Miami.
Was he? I don't remember. Was he actually one of your higher graded quarterbacks coming out?
I had similar grade. Like, I had Burrow a little higher than him, but I had Tua like pretty close to him, to be honest. Because I'm still under the opinion that if Tua's in a good situation, the only way he's going to fail is because of the injuries, right? And like that injuries have obviously been well documented. Like I think he's going to be a good football player. But yeah, that year he was my second ranked quarterback, which looks silly now because of Herbert, I guess. But like I really do like Tua a ton.
Bro, you know how many evaluators and scouts have told me that they had Tua as one of their highest evaluated players ever, and they're like at the quarterback position, and they're like, yo, falling on my face. But I agree with you, man. The injuries, because this is, I think, what people are seeing live out, especially Dolphin fans, Ryan, is how much situation and environment matters when you draft a player. Like Absolutely. You are seeing it play out right in front of your face with Tua, because I've said it before, I'll say it again. Heading into last season, Ryan, there wasn't that big of a gap between Burrow coming off that injury and Tua. There really wasn't. If you look at their 2020 film, there wasn't this massive gap between them. And now there is a big gap between them. So it's what it is, man. Listen, anything you want, like, go ahead. Any articles you got coming out, you want to plug, anything? I know you got podcast rocking, everything you got going.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, we've had a lot of good podcast hosts recently. We had like Jordan Reed from ESPN, Connor Rogers from Bleacher Report. So if you want to check out any of the podcasts, it's Believe in NFL Draft Prospect Podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. You can also check out Irish Breakdown Podcast. You can check out the YouTube page. We have right around 10,000 subscribers. So there's a lot of people that come on there, obviously. So if there's any Notre Dame fans out there, irishbreakdown.com on Sports Illustrated. It's a good time, but like obviously draft season right now, RiseNDraft.com. You can find any scouting reports, podcasts, mock drafts will be coming out each and every week leading up to the draft. So we'll be kind of doing extra coverage as we go along, but you can follow everything at RiseNDraft on Twitter. Easy enough.
Who are you going to tell people to put their money on as the first name off the board? Aiden Hutchinson?
It's Aiden, man. I'm not buying the Trevon Walker stuff. I've heard way too many people say it's Aiden to start to think that it's Trevon at this point.
Ryan, as always, man, I appreciate you coming through. I'm going to have you on after the draft just to go over what little draft class we have. I'm not even like doing a panel for night one and stuff like that this year because there's
no need. Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why? So, but next year, I wanted to say this to you. Actually, I wanted to say this to you. Does them trading the 29 and 50th, but stacking up on, we got 5 picks in the first 3 rounds next year. Or early scouting and evaluation, do you think it's a much deeper class next year? And do you like the strategy that they impose this year of spend the financial capital and fill the holes? And next year, when we're gonna have to take care of guys like Christian Wilkins and maybe Gesicki, and we're not gonna have much money available, well, we got a plethora of draft picks. Is next year's draft class the class for them to execute that with, in your opinion?
It seems like a lot more of a. It seems like a lot deeper at the top next year. Like again, I don't know if the depth will be the same because this year's class, you're going to get guys into day 3 that I think are going to make football teams, and even the UDFAs I think are going to make football teams and have some type of role, right? But I think the first 2 to 3 rounds I think will definitely be stronger just from early viewing. I started with quarterbacks and it was so refreshing to actually watch good quarterback play. Like it was pretty insane. So yeah, I think next year you want to stockpile a little bit of the early picks. Like this year, I think like the Chiefs, I think did a good job this year because they have 12 total picks. And I think that this year, the depth picks, I think that you're going to get a lot of good players in this class. But next year, if you can get day 2 or day 1 picks, because I think the Philadelphia Eagles are obviously trying to stockpile as well because they might be moving up for a quarterback too. But if you want to stockpile the early picks next year, I think that is a very good idea to do because it definitely does seem a lot stronger at the top than this year.
CJ Stroud, your early QB1?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I actually haven't watched Bryce Young yet. So I watched, I think 4 quarterbacks so far. I watched Stroud, Djerkovich from Boston College. Yep. I watched Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami. And then I watched who else did I watch? Oh, Devin Leary from NC State. That's where I started with.
Dude, we got a bunch of Hurricane fans. Give me the early lowdown.
You don't want to. You don't want me to do it. You don't
Go
want me to
do it. Give him the early lowdown on TVD. Go.
Oh man, I think it might just be the games I watched, man. I watched like the Florida State game and he ended up having like 4 touchdowns in that game, but like, man, there were some ugly throws in that game, man. Like there were just some really ugly throws. So I'm not that high on him right now, to be honest. I want to see obviously what he does next season, but like I saw good arm. I saw some good throws outside the numbers, middle of the field. I thought he was kind of late a lot. I didn't see a great athlete either. So I'm trying to like be open-minded with him and just kind of going back, but like, I've heard some people say first round quarterback. I don't see first round quarterback.
What do you think about Djerkovich? I'm not a.
I like Djerkovich. I like him. He's raw. Like he's a very raw player, and I think it really hurt him this past year having to. He got hurt and missed the majority of the season, right? But coming back next year, I think with Zay Flowers, and they have a pretty good running back named Garwo, who I think are going to be good football players for him. So, I mean, he's got a really strong arm. He's a pretty good athlete for his size as well. He's got kind of like Big Ben vibes to him. So I think he could be a riser next year, but his whole thing is he needs to stay healthy for a season.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear your Will Levis breakdown, brother.
Man, I posted a tweet of him last season, man, when I thought maybe he would end up coming out. And man, he misses some layups, man. But then he does some things where you're just like, why are you doing this to me, Will? Like you're bringing me back in, man. But yeah.
Hey, man, I appreciate you giving me, almost an hour and a half of your time tonight, brother. Always a good time. Always a good conversation, man.
No, absolutely, Reason. I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate you having me on as always.
Thanks, brother. Guys, go follow him, RiseNDraft.com, and you can go follow him on Twitter at RiseNDraft. Guys, I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for coming through. I hope everyone has a fantastic Monday night. Until next time, everyone stay happy, healthy, safe, and blessed. And as always, fins up all day, every day.